Great. So thank you all again for joining this webinar. Really, this kind of came about from the communications work group for the coalition, wanting to focus a lot of our time and effort on helping to train ourselves and learn more from each other about certain topics and issues and tools. So this is the first of hopefully many future webinars that we will continue to do to help build everyone's knowledge and professional development and just our capacity as communications folks. So I'm open to feedback from everybody on other types of trainings people would like to see. If we need to bring in somebody beyond this work group who has a certain expertise we'd like to hear, I'm happy to explore that as well. So, you know, no idea is stupid. I'm always open to anything. So I look forward to hearing from you guys about that. But today we are very happy to have Joan joining us from the Chesapeake Bay program, who's going to be talking a little bit about Google Analytics, and not just this is Google Analytics, this is how we use it, and this is what it is. You know, I think that's you know, what a lot of our folks already know how to do, but taking your Google Analytics game maybe to the next level and using it to inform some of our content, which I think is something that a lot of us are interested in and would love to do more of. So I'm very excited to learn today from Joan and the rest of the Bay program staff. So I'll turn it over to her, but did someone else just join?
Yep, this is Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
Yeah, hello.
Awesome, wonderful. And this presentation will be recorded, so if you ever want to reference it again, or if you would like the PowerPoint, I'm sure Joan would be happy to let me share that with everybody, but either way, this will be recorded and distributed to the work group as well for folks that could not join. So, all right, with that, I will turn it over to Joan.
All right, hello everyone, and thank you, Kristen, for letting me talk today about how the Chesapeake Bay program uses our analytics to inform our web content. Off to a great start. All right, as Kristen mentioned, my name is Joan Smunninghoff, and for the past 2 years, I have been the communications staffer at the Chesapeake Bay program, where my main duties include writing blog posts, updating web content, and managing our Twitter accounts. So, to begin with, why should we bother with analytics? And I guess even before that, just for anyone who walked into this and doesn't really know anything about analytics, they're a way that we measure our web and our social media traffic, engagement, and performance. And so one of the reasons why we want to use analytics, I think, is summed up really well in this quote by H. James Harrington that says, "Measurement is the first step that leads to control and eventually to improvement. If you can't measure something, you can't understand it. If you can't understand it, you can't control it. And if you can't control it, you can't improve it." Analytics are the measurements to help you understand your audience and the content they respond to, and therefore help you know how you can adjust your site or blog to their wants and needs. And so with time and looking through your analytics, you can get a good picture of who your audience is and what they like. So to collect all of this information, we mainly use Google Analytics, but I also wanted to sneak in some social media, which is why I put it in parentheses, because we share all of our content on our social media, so understanding a little bit about how those analytics works kind of helps with understanding the two-way process between creating the content and putting it out there and then sharing it through social media. So the next question is, what can you learn with analytics? And the answer is basically everything. You can look at how many visitors your site has in the moment or over time, who has visited your site recently, and how many of those recent visitors are unique new visitors or repeat visitors. You can learn how visitors get to your site. You can learn which pages on your site have been visited the most, the least. You can learn the average time spent viewing your site, and you can learn what kinds of browsers people are using. You can learn so much more, and there is so much available that it can seem a bit overwhelming at first. So when you first log on to Google Analytics, this is what you see. There's a lot of dashboards that you can go to. When you first open it up, it'll show you what is happening on your site in the moment. So this was earlier today. We had 71 people looking at our website, and you can see over time, what days, what time is most popular, where you see the bright blue in the bottom right-hand corner. It's the United States. That's where most of our visitors come from. You can drill down into the current visitors. A little later on, we had 70 people on our site. You can see, or I don't know if you can see in the left-hand side, one of the places referring people to our website was classrooms.google.com. I'll cover this later, but teachers and students are two of our main audiences on our website. You can use it to get an overview of your audience. And see what pages they're visiting over a set period of time at the bottom. Those are just different pages on our website that have gotten the most visits over the past week. And so that's just a tiny taste of what's available, and there's so much more. So it's really easy to get lost in the pages of your analytics. That's why, particularly when you're first starting to dive into analytics, you want to take a look at the metrics that are most important to you and that align with your goals and priorities. And some metrics might be more interesting to you or to members of your team than others. For example, on our team, we have 2 web developers. So some of our metrics that are more technical, like the average amount of time it takes for a page to load or what browser people are using, that's really interesting to them because that relates to the work they're doing. One of them is really interested in making sure that our load time is as quick as possible, so he's always looking to see, okay, we're at 6 seconds, can we get it down to 5? Can we go even faster? So that's something that's very important to them. For someone like me that's on the content side, the goals that I'm interested in are more in line with metrics, like what are common search terms and what are the most popular pages. Specifically for our blog, we look at specific metrics that pertain to how many people are looking at those pages and how long they're staying on those pages. So now we'll get into some more specifics about what I just mentioned, what we track. At the beginning of each month, our team gathers for a review of the previous month's analytics, and below you can see the metrics we track on our main website, which is chesapeakebay.net. I'll just kind of quickly go through them to explain a little bit about what they are. Some are pretty self-explanatory, like users. It's the number of people on our site. Sessions and page views are linked together. If you go to chesapeakebay.net and read 2 blog posts and maybe then look at our staff page and leave, that counts as 3 page views because you looked at 3 separate pages. However, your entire time on the site, when you looked at those 3 pages, counts as 1 session. Bounce rate refers to the percentage of people who visit the site and then immediately leave. The average session duration is how long a session lasts. So if it takes you 2 minutes to read each of those blog posts and then 10 seconds to look at the staff page, your session is 4 minutes and 10 seconds. New and returning users is pretty self-explanatory, who's coming to our site for the first time and who has been there multiple times. Browser lets us know if our visitors are using Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, Internet Explorer, that sort of thing. Traffic source lets us know where our visitors are coming from. They might be opening up Chrome, typing in www.chesapeakebay.net. They might be Googling Chesapeake Bay and seeing Chesapeake Bay program pop up and then clicking on it. They could be subscribed to one of our newsletters and see us put out a blog post and come to our website by clicking on that link. One time we had a dramatic spike in visitors, like by the thousands, because someone shared one of our field guide pages on Reddit and it went crazy, and we had all these new people visiting this one specific page through Reddit. So it's really interesting to see where our traffic is coming from. Average page load time, we don't want people to be waiting 8 seconds for each page to load, so it's important to know how long that's taking, and then the developers with the more technical knowledge can tweak things to try to make that better. User device, that refers to people who are on desktop, mobile, or tablet. Later on, I'll talk about how we redesigned our website, but that was to make it more user-friendly, or more mobile-friendly. Social networks is another thing we look at. As someone who runs our Twitter account, I want to know if people are finding our website through Twitter, if they see the things that I'm posting and then click on it and go to our website from there. And then the last two, we can see which pages are the most popular and what search terms people are using. For our blog, we drill down specifically looking at page views on each of our blog posts and the average amount of time that people spend on it. The expected time on page is a separate metric that we calculate, which I'll get into a little further in a few slides. We have a couple other web products, including Chesapeake Progress, which is where we track the progress towards our goals, and then Bay Backpack, which is specifically a resource for teachers. So we also use Google Analytics to see how those two websites are doing. I won't get into the specifics of those, but that's just another way we use it. And then, as I mentioned, for social media, we use Facebook Analytics, which is a service Facebook provides, and Twitter Analytics, which Twitter provides, to track those two accounts. And then we use Iconosquare to track our Instagram account. So once you know what metrics you want to track, how do you actually keep track of them? As I showed earlier, Google Analytics is basically a huge dashboard that can answer almost any question you could have. But for ChesapeakeBay.net, we use something called Google Data Studio to analyze those metrics. This is another free Google product that lets you set up your own personal customized dashboard to show you just the information you want. Our user analyst, who is on our web team, set up this page for all of our metrics. And each month, when we review our analytics, all she has to do is adjust the time frame in the top right-hand corner. Since it's a Google product, it pulls the data directly from Google Analytics. For our web content and social media, we want to look at how many people view our page, but also measure their engagement. We want people staying on the page for a long time, and for our social media accounts, we want people liking, commenting on, and sharing our posts. Measuring this relies heavily on Google Analytics, but also information we input ourselves. So we keep all of this information in two spreadsheets, one for blog posts and another for social media. For the blog posts, we measure performance over a 28-day period. You can see here that we track when a blog is published, when its closing date is, which is 28 days later, the name of the blog and what type of post it was, because we have a couple categories such as a list post, news post, restoration feature. The readability score, which lets us know how difficult it is for the average reader to understand. We determine this by inputting it into a website called readable.com. We track the word count. And then if you look a couple columns over, you'll see one called expected time on page, which is a metric we calculate based on a post's word count. So for example, if we have two blog posts that people spend 3 minutes looking at, but one is 200 words long and the other is 2,000 words, we know that the first post was more engaging, or possibly that people had trouble reading it because they spent more time on it. So to know, or they spent the same amount of time but on fewer words. So to know if it was too difficult to read and that's why they spent so long on it, we also look at the readability score. So then from Google Analytics, we get the average time people spend on the page, the number of page views, the unique page views, which is the number of sessions during which the page was viewed. So for example, I might go to a website to read a blog post, then go to the home page, and then go back to look at the blog post again. This would count as 2 page views for the post, but only 1 unique page view, because I'm the same person. So then we can learn the average time spent on the page. And in the last column, we calculate the % difference from what we expected. So hopefully that would be at least 0, but hopefully a little longer. So then for social media, again, we don't get this information from Google, but we still want to know what people are looking at and engaging with. So Facebook Analytics lets you see, it's right on their website, so we can track when something is posted, if it's our content or someone else's, and then generally what topic it covers. We track what the post said, how many people saw it, the total reactions, which is the likes, loves, angry faces, and whatnot, shares and comments, link clicks, how many fans we had that week, and then this last one we do ourselves. We calculate the engagement rate, which factors in the reactions, comments, and shares. We want reactions, and we would love comments, but one of the things we really want is shares. So each of those is weighted. And depending on your goals, you might weight these differently. One thing that we really want to share, so we give that the highest, but maybe for whatever reason, it makes more sense for you to really highly value comments. So you might rank that one a little higher. So for Twitter, Twitter also provides analytics on the site, which is listed below. Similar to Facebook, we track when something is posted, what it is, and if it's our content. And since Twitter's a little different, we track the retweets, likes, and replies, as well as how many people have either clicked on the link or expanded the photo that you can include with the post. Impressions is how many people saw the post, and engagement is the addition of the retweets, likes, and replies, and link clicks and expansion. So that's just kind of a summary of those earlier metrics. And so Twitter provides its own engagement rate. So we include that, but we also calculate our own using a similar formula to the one we use for Facebook, just adjusted for Twitter's specific needs. And lastly, we use Iconosquare to track our Instagram engagement, which includes similar but fewer metrics just based on how Instagram is set up. So we have, what was posted, the text, how many likes, comments, the fans we have, and then we calculate an engagement rate. So for all of these monster spreadsheets and from other information in Google Analytics, what have we actually learned about our audience, and how has that influenced the way we work? First of all, let's take a look at visitors to ChesapeakeBay.net. This here is a graph from November 2016 to November 2017, and I've pointed out two major dips. The first one happened late December to early January, and the other one happened from June to August. So what could possibly coincide with those two ranges? That is the school year. We always see a dip when students are out for break, which reinforces our knowledge that teachers and students are two of our main audiences. Using Google Analytics, we can also drill down specifically into here we go. I'll go back to the past slide quickly. You might also notice a lot of smaller peaks and valleys, and if you were to add those up, there would probably be about 52, because those peaks are our traffic during the week, and the valleys are the weekends. So we see how many visitors we have and when they come, but where do they actually go? It turns out our field guide, which is by far the most popular section of our website. This is what it looks like. And so this is one thing that's really popular, particularly with students. Teachers will give them reports to do on different animals, things like that. Also just, I don't know, it's fun to learn about the different critters in the watershed. So this gets the lion's share of our interaction. Second is a section called Discover the Chesapeake. This contains a lot of introductory information about the Chesapeake Bay watershed, including a section of Bay 101 videos, facts and figures about the watershed, an introduction to the ecosystem, what is the watershed page, a brief history of the region, photos and videos, FAQs, and a glossary. Our field guide is also a part of this section, but since it gets such a large amount of traffic, we always think about it separately. And all this information, again, is great for students to get an introduction to the watershed or who are working on reports. This information is also great for our other main audience, which we call the interested public. And that's people who already know a little bit about the Bay or are kind of interested in environmental issues but want to learn more. And so a section that ties for seconds is our Learn the Issues section. And that contains information on major topics of the region, including nutrient pollution, stormwater runoff, forests, and blue crabs. And again, this is something that we see is really popular with both that student audience and also the interested public who want to learn how does agriculture impact the Bay, how are blue crabs doing, things like that. And so our fourth largest section of our site is our blog, which I mentioned earlier we look at specifically because that's one of our more updated pieces. And on our blog, we share stories about conservation and restoration projects around the watershed, as well as news posts about major announcements coming out of the Bay program. And so One other way we know what our audience is interested in is by what they search for. This here is just a cluster of some of the top searches we've had over the past year, and as you can see, critters and basic information about issues facing the bay are main topics that people care about. You see pollution, you see osprey, blue crab, always our #1. So that's another way that we can learn a little bit about who our users are and what they're interested in is by what they're searching for, because that's what they're hoping to find on our website. So earlier I mentioned that we redesigned our website to make it look more mobile friendly. So if some of you are familiar with our old site and haven't seen it recently, you might not recognize, but this is what it looks like. Yeah, so we incorporated a lot of what we learned about our visitors from our analytics when we redid this website. And so originally our homepage had one box in the middle where we highlighted our critter of the month. However, since we knew that the majority of our visitors were using our field guide, we've expanded that to be a full page slider that included multiple critters that people could take a look at. We also knew that the Discover sections and the Learn the Issues sections were the next most visited parts of our website. And those had never been featured on our homepage before, so we wanted to include that. We also created a new section to track some of our goals, such as increasing wetlands and increasing blue crab abundance, as well as adding in some new topics like bald eagles and invasive species, things that our audience cared about. And we created this new section called Track Bay Health. I won't get into all of that since that is a whole nother presentation, but this was another thing that it was very important to use our analytics to kind of understand who our audience was, what they were interested in, and mix that with user research to come up with this new section that we now feature prominently on our site. So from collecting all of our blog analytics, we've learned a couple things about what our users like in our blogs. Our more successful posts include visual storytelling. Our photographer takes fantastic photos, and we use those to attract people to our stories and also to complement and enhance our stories. We really work together to make sure that the videos or the photos and videos are part of our stories. People love good news. They love success stories. So anytime we can promote good news, that always goes over well. And then stories that make a personal connection or feature an approachable science, those always do well. Less successful posts we found are policy-related or more complex and obscure reports. It's something that doesn't go over too well. And you can see this in our analytics. This, hopefully you can read this. This is just some of our about top 20 posts of the year so far. And as you can see, we have 5 signs of resiliency in the Bay. Bay barometer shows measured progress. Bay program approves, a best management practice. I'm kind of surprised to see that in the top 3, but it's still a good news thing. It's like, here's one more thing that can be credited for pollution reduction. Things also like critters, endangered species. We have another one on blue crabs. Those do well. Travel back in time to these sites, places that people can go. Just ways people can either engage with the places, the people, and the critters of the watershed, or good news stories always go over well. And then on the other side, here are about our top 25 lowest performing posts. And so a lot of these are about either conferences, events, or maybe a little more complex science. One thing that's kind of interesting, you'll see a lot of photos of the week, which is something that we do every week. And they consistently get pretty low views, but they get a lot of engagement. If you can see on the column on the far right, highlighted in green, most of the photos of the week have at least over 50%. People staying there 50% longer, some of them 200, 400% longer than we expected. So not as many views, but there's still, the people who do go there are staying a long time, so that's interesting. So then I wanted to give you an example of how some of our recent analytics to show you more of how this looks in real life. So what I was just showing was kind of the overall things we've learned with time. Every month we meet, so I'm just going to give you a little taste of what we talk about each month. So first, for our website, this is just a screen shots from that Google Data Studio that I was showing you earlier. And as you can see, it's September, so kids are back in school. So our users shot up, our sessions shot up, page views shot up, bounce rate went down because people were going there, wanted to be there. Average session duration went up. So that's all great. And that's one thing that, again, tells us that this is really students here. If you can also see traffic sources, we have classrooms.google.com again. You can see we track our new and returning visitors, the browsers people are using, and the average page load time for each of those browsers. Again, that's something that our developers are interested in. You can see Firefox does the best with 4.55 seconds. Internet Explorer, 7 seconds. That's not something we like to see, but I guess kind of expected for Internet Explorer. Some other things we see are desktop shot up, again, desktop and tablet, because students at school on desktop, some schools are moving over to tablet, so I'm guessing that's why tablet went up, and mobile went down a little bit because kids should not be on their phones in school. Social network is something that I always find really interesting, again, because I work on our Twitter account, so you can see how many people are coming from Facebook and Twitter. I'm guessing a lot of that is from our accounts, but again, that's when we can use our Facebook and Twitter analytics to kind of go back and see, are these coming from our sites, are these coming from somewhere else. Weebly and Blogger, that's not us, but it's interesting to see that people are using those. And then on the right-hand side, you can see just some of the top pages from September and what people are searching for. So again, they're wanting to learn about SAV, they're wanting to learn about the critters in the bay, maybe see how blue crabs are doing. But we get a lot of, consistent critters, issues, things like that. That's what people are looking for. So then for our blog in September, I'm going to kind of quickly go through this, but we had 11 posts. Our highest views, again, this all kind of goes along with some of the general trends. Lafayette River is doing good. That got the highest views. It's a good news story. The Mattawoman story also was a good news about preservation of the Mattawoman and featured a beautiful photo. So I'm guessing we drew them in with the photo and then they wanted to hear the good story. Then the third one is, again, a little sciencey, but it's about a critter people are interested in. Good news story. Grants, good news story. And then monitoring marsh birds. Again, more approachable science. It includes birds, so that's something that people might be interested in birds, curious about the science. Lowest views, photos of the week are the top two. That's not too unexpected based on our analytics. Oyster restoration in the Lafayette, this was a news post that came out after the other post earlier, so people were probably like, oh, we already know it's doing well, don't need to read that. Then the last two, not quite sure why they didn't do as well, but one of them was a photo of the week, and I guess the other one people weren't as interested in. Longest time, again, this is something we like to see people staying. So we have a photo of the week. Not as many people watched it or looked at it, but the ones who did stayed there for a long time. Again, our good news stories are all up there, so people were really curious to see how those went. The Lafayette one also included a video, so people were hopefully watching that. And then shortest time, we have two of our photos of the week, a news post, people probably skimming it, being like, okay, it's doing well, move on. And another sharing photo of the week. And then this is the one where we really look at, okay, you were on the page for a long time, but was it a long time or was that shorter than what we expected? And so here we have our photos of the week. Again, people stay there for a long time. And then our two features, the Marsh Birds and the Universal Sailing Club, both included videos. So I'm guessing that it was when we calculate expected time, we don't include videos, we just include the text. So they didn't have too much text, so we were expecting people to not be there for too long, but they did include videos, so maybe they weren't reading the text, they were watching the video. And so the opposite is true for this Lafayette one. It was a relatively longer post, but it did include a video, so we expected people to be there for a long time, but maybe they were just watching the video and moving on. And so lastly, I'm going to go through our social media from October. So for Facebook, we tracked how many new likes we had. We had about 1% increase of 70 new people. Half of the chart got cut off, but this is the more important half, showing what our objectives are for Facebook. We have different objectives for each of our social media accounts. So for Facebook, we want to increase our followers by 3%, publish at least 60 posts. We want 4 of those posts to reach 10,000 users. We want to have at least 6% engagement. And if I remember correctly, I think we met the last 1 or 2. So we try to set goals that are a little bit challenging, that we can't hit them all the time, but require a little more work, a little more thought, because that's something that also helps when you're setting goals and trying to figure out how to use your analytics. You can say we want to post 1 tweet a month. That's probably easy for most people to hit, but try to set something that's a little out of reach, and then use your analytics to say, okay, so what went well, what didn't. And then we always go over just some of the highest engaged posts. So this one from the anniversary of the Clean Water Act did very well, reached over 7,000 people and had almost 8% engagement. This one, we shared an old post of scary stories from around the watershed on Halloween, which over 8,000 people saw it and almost had 7% engagement. And then another one I have in italics because we did boost it on Facebook, but it was about ways to be a citizen scientist, reached almost 11,000 people, and had over 4.5% engagement. So then for Twitter, again, we saw a 1% increase in followers of 89 people, almost at 10,000, so that's exciting. And so these are just some of our goals. Again, I think we hit 2 of them. I can't remember which ones, but we want to increase followers by 1.2%, publish at least 140 posts. We want 4 of those posts to get at least 10 retweets, and then 2 of those tweets to exceed 0.6% engagement. So our most engaged with posts was one that was an infographic and linked to one of the pages on our website about Osprey, which hit over 2,000 people and got 0.88% engagement. Second, we shared a post from Maryland DNR about bats during Bat Week, which hit 2,500 people and 0.73% engagement. And then another one about how U.S. Fish and Wildlife gathers milkweed for monarchs, which hit over 2,000 people at 0.65% engagement. And that's another thing I forgot to mention earlier with our social media traffic and tracking our analytics. We've realized that not all social media is alike, and the people who use them are a little different. So on Facebook, people tend to like more about critters. Again, always good news stories. Our Twitter audience tends to like a little more either scientific or even all of these. They were more about critters, but a little more sciencey at times. And then our Instagram audience just likes really beautiful photos, obviously. So photos of critters always do well too. So on Instagram, again, we saw a 1% increase of 87 people. Objectives to increase followers by 4%, publish at least 30 posts, 2 of which will gain over 150 likes, and 3 of which will have 6% engagement. So this one of a clear nose skate, which I didn't even know what that was, but this got the most likes of 163 with a 6.7% engagement. This one, it's probably hard to read, but had a really interesting story with it of this house, which got 161 likes and a 6.36% engagement. And then lastly, of course, cute little Diamondback Terrapin, which got 127 likes and 5.24% engagement. So I guess to kind of sum this all up, as you go about your analytics adventure, you want to keep a couple things in mind. What are your goals? I just listed out our social media goals, and for example, for our blog, since that's something I work on a lot, we are always looking to increase our engagement and increase views, but definitely increase that engagement. So you want to think about what goals make sense for your organization and what makes sense for the product that you have. Do you have a blog? Do you just have your website that really explains who you are and what you do? Are you mostly on social media? Which social media accounts are you on? So you also want to think about what metrics will help you measure your goals. Does it make sense to be tracking average time on page, or perhaps if you have donations, you want to see how many people are clicking on that donation link. Another thing, how will you track and measure those metrics? Google Analytics is great, and that makes up the lion's share of where we get our information from, as are the other sites I mentioned for social media are really great too, but it helps to have a separate place where you can store all of that data. I forgot to mention with Google Data Studio, you can download that each month, so you have a somewhat physical thing saying this is how our website did in September, this is how it did in October, and then our spreadsheets, we create a new one every 6 months. So it's a monster sheet, but it's not too monstrous because it only covers 6 months. And so then that's something that you can go to and really analyze your data and see how your products are performing. How often will you track and analyze your data? We collect our social media information every week and then analyze it along with our blog and website statistics every month. So is that something that you have the time and capacity for? Should you be doing it more often? Should you be doing it less often? We have a relatively large team. We have one person each looking at each of our websites. I look at our blog, and then we have a team effort behind our social media. So you think about the capacity that you have. And then lastly, who else needs to review your results and your recommendations? You don't just want to keep all the fun analytics to yourself. This information can be valuable to other people in your organization, and it can really help you out as you're talking to perhaps decision makers or people higher up in your organization to help them understand why you're doing what you're doing. Or if you want to make a change to your website, you can say, hey, we should really move our blog to this section, or we should really highlight this project that we are working on because our users really like this kind of stuff and we have it hidden away here. Let's try moving it here. That's the other thing. None of this is set in stone. You can look at your analytics, make some assumptions, make some decisions based on the information you have, and if that doesn't work, then you look at the new information you have and see where to go from there. So I've listed a few resources here about how to start with Google Analytics, Google Data Studio, also the readability website. Yeah, if Kristen can send this out, then you can take a look at those and learn a little bit more. But I wanted to thank you all for letting me talk today. Here's how you can reach me after today, but for now, does anyone have any questions?
Hey, Joan, I have a question. So actually, someone else has a question. It's typing in the chat box. Rita is asking, how do you find search words that people use to find your site?
Is that like what are people Googling to get to your site, or one?
Yeah, I think that's what. Yes, I'm being Rita's mouthpiece right now. Yes.
Okay. With Google, you can set up some different privacy options. So some of it will show up as not defined, but some other things will pop up in in your analytics to show what people are searching to get to your site.
Okay, so it's all just in the analytics.
Yes.
That's the field to track.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's not something that we look at, but it's in there. Okay. I can't think offhand of what it's labeled under, but that is something you can look at.
Awesome. And we maybe one day we want to do a webinar on something around SEO and search terms and things like that. So I think that would be interesting. All right. So I have a question. So if there's just like, and everyone's busy, you know, not everyone has a large communications team. If there was just one recommendation that you could give to folks like us that are on the call, we have a lot of other things to do communications-wise, but there might be one thing that they could do now that would help up their game by using these strategies. What would that one thing be? And that might be a hard question to answer on the spot, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, it all really depends on your organization. So I think going back to defining those goals, maybe you don't have the capacity to be looking at, 27 different goals, but think of what is most important to your organization at this moment. Is it getting more donations? Is it getting more people to sign up for your newsletter? Is it getting more people to look at your blog posts? Think of the one thing that you want to do most, and then figure out what metrics will help you track that and track that one thing. That would be my recommendation.
Great. And I also have a question for folks on the phone. Is anyone currently looking at their Google Analytics like this or using any of these tools to kind of shape their content on their website?
This is Kelly. I've done a little bit with Facebook Insights, but haven't dipped into the Google Analytics, but have started thinking more about that. So this has been really helpful.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, great. And it looks like some people typed in on the top in the box that yes, people are doing this and maybe not to this degree. Tom said no. Okay, wonderful. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one thing that I find really interesting is kind of the interaction between your social media and your social media analytics, and then the analytics that you can get from Google. So, you can see I had all of these tweets and, 10 people clicked on this link, and then you can go to Google Analytics and say, we got, this many people coming in from Twitter, where did they go after that? You can really dig down deep into some of the information there and kind of find out a lot about your users.
All right.
Joan,
anyone else? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. This is Melissa from Potomac Conservancy. I just wanted to give you, to just thank you, because I really appreciated that you kind of opened up your book to us and let us see your direct metrics. I know that's something that's not, always comfortable to do, but I think it's a really important way to, share information. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. It's not every day that you see that. Sometimes in webinars you get sort of like top level views of trends, but I thought it was really interesting and helpful to see your metrics, so thank you.
Of course, yeah. Don't have any dark secrets here. So. I think particularly, I was a little worried. I'm putting in screenshots of Excel sheets, but I think it's one thing to say, oh yeah, you should use Google Analytics and there's a lot you can learn, but then you get into it and it's a behemoth and it's 27 different dashboards and you can go all over with it, and then it's like, okay, how do you just kind of pick what you want, put it in one place, and then look at it? So I hope that would be helpful, so I'm glad to hear that.
Awesome. Well, does anyone else have any other questions? Nope. Let me see. There's a couple coming through in the chat box. Any value to tracking likes on Facebook?
I would say yes. It's a way to see people who are engaging with your content, and generally it means that they like it or agree with you having posted it. So I would say yes. In our, if I can try to go back to the page where we have, again, I mentioned that we weight everything. So likes aren't weighted as high as everything else. So we would rather people be sharing. We would rather they be commenting. But it's still good to know. I think I went past it. Do you mean overall likes and like how many people have liked your page, or how many people like individual posts?
That is a good question. Let's see. Tom is typing.
Okay, individual stories. Yeah, so I think I might have either gone past it or lost it in here.
Yeah.
Okay, it was towards the beginning. Here we go. So yeah, so total reactions, that's what the likes is, since they've expanded it to include angry faces and laughing faces. So it's something that we don't weight as highly as comments and shares, but it is still something that we want to see. We want to see people liking our stuff or reacting to it in some way. Hopefully not so many angry faces, but reacting to it in some way. But that is why we weigh it, because we would rather be getting comments and shares. So that's we weigh that more highly.
Great. I think, yeah, any kind of engagement is probably good in some way, right? But different value. And I think that might actually be another interesting dive, maybe deeper for some folks into Facebook specifically, or maybe just social specific analytics as well, and looking at that. Because I know that can also change pretty frequently, at least with Facebook. I feel like they're changing all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, Facebook definitely, every day I'm like, why did not so many people see this? And something very similar did very well last week. Yeah, there's definitely a lot you can dive into with all of this. So it's very easy to get caught in the weeds. So again, it's think about what's important to you, what's important to your organization, and starting there. And you can always branch out into other things, or if you have a very specific question about something else, particularly with Google Analytics, once you have it set up on your website, it will just collect all of the information. So maybe you're only tracking how many people are clicking on your subscribe to newsletter button, but in a year, you might want to say, oh, like how did, this post perform compared to this new one we posted of a similar topic, and then you can go back and look at it.
Awesome. All right. Well, does anyone else have any other questions? All right. Well, thank you again, Joan, so much. Melissa's typing. I don't know if she's going to ask a question, but nope, just thank you. So thank you again so much for this, and again for really opening up, like Melissa said, opening up your books to us and really diving deep into some of this. Again, this has been recorded, and I will send it out to the communications work group, so anyone who missed it can just click the link and we'll be able to watch and listen. And like I said, that we're hoping that this will become an ongoing series of webinars around different communications tools or ideas or concepts. And so if anyone has any ideas for things that maybe they would like to present about, or think something they would like to hear, please let me know. And I think that this was a great success, so I'm glad that our first one was, and that hopefully we can continue to do these more frequently moving forward. So thank you guys again, and I will hopefully talk to you all soon.
All right, thank you. And again, if anyone wants to reach out, my contact information is at the end of this presentation that I'm sure Kristen will send out to the group. So
yes,
thank you, everyone.
Definitely. Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your week.